Like I'm going to talk about our organization, like efficiency and kind of our case study of capital health, but we're very much the individualistic model. We pay incentives and we hope to influence behavior, and that's basically how we started. We've only been around for about 4 years, but that is how it works. We have rebates for a product and we promote the rebates, and then we hope that people take them up, and we don't really do a whole lot beyond that. We have sort of some programs that we try to go on. Like I said before, we do the mail out to homes, and you get a frowny face if you're below the average of the homes, and you get a smiley face if you're above. And the people who get the smiley face are really happy, and maybe they do some things, but the frowny face people don't do anything, and they just call us and complain. So it doesn't work very well. Okay, so that's a photo of our site in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, which is across the harbour from Halifax. It's a large kind of spread out hospital where there's like a main general hospital with like inpatients and surgeries and an emergency room. And then this is across the street. That's a steam plant that feeds the hospital. That's over here. And then behind it, there's a mental hospital over here, and there's kind of like a multifunctional. There's a gym back here, like a gymnasium. And then there's back there with the wind turbine is a Nova Scotia Community College. So that there's this kind of big campus of institutions and multiple users and all kinds of different stuff going on. So it's one of our most active sites. So I'm going to go through kind of a profile. I put together a comparison of Capital Health and University Health Network to kind of let you guys get familiar. I thought there'd be more people from University Health Network here, so to kind of compare the two organizations and what we're each doing and what I'm doing and what you're doing and whatever else. And I'll talk about some of the results from our overall programs, where I've been in the organization there for 3 years now, and some of the stuff that we've done, and the money we've spent, and what that's resulted in. And then I'm going to get specifically into the behavior change stuff that we call behavior change at the end, and hopefully that'll spur some discussion. So we've just turned into a single health authority. So we've amalgamated. We used to have 11 health authorities for all the different little areas of Nova Scotia. It's now, as of April, one big one. So this is kind of a profile of the main sites in Nova Scotia. There's 3 that make up 95% of the floor space for Capital Health. Capital Health itself is about half of the hospitals in Nova Scotia. So that right there is about half of the total floor space and half of the user. It's all the tertiary effects. Pretty much everything else is like little regional hospitals where you'd go if you had a broken leg or something. Anything serious would come into one of these 3. And they also serve the whole population, but they also serve the region. So if there's something going on in New Brunswick, those people would probably get sent to Halifax. So it's kind of the catchment area for that region. And it's an important institution for that reason. So I don't know if, I don't know how many people UHN serves. Millions? Yeah. So our max would probably be around 1 million for the total population that's served. So I went through your energy report, your energy plan, and I kind of took all the metrics that you use, and I produced the same ones for Capital Health. So I'm going to just show you the two. So I kind of flip between them. So this is a UHN one for your energy use, the total scale of the energy that you use, and I kind of guessed at what I thought it was in gigajoules. So your largest user is the Toronto General Hospital, and that compares to our Halifax Infirmary and Victoria General, which together form the QE2 complex of hospitals, and you can see that they use a lot more energy than your Toronto General Hospital, which would probably be a comparable size to the 2 sites put together. So it's pretty bad as a first look. They use way more energy than they should. We're serving way fewer people and probably doing fewer procedures and all these things. But
are they old buildings or?
Yeah. So the Halifax Infirmary is made up of 4 separate hospitals. So there's like an acute mental hospital. There's a veterans memorial complex, which is like kind of a retirement home for veterans. And then there's sort of the tertiary hospital attached to that. And there's all kinds of little clinics and support services around it. Victoria General is probably, parts of it are from the 1890s, some parts are from the 60s, and it's like labs and more tertiary services and all sorts of different things are in these. Some of the buildings are falling apart, some are quite new and well maintained, so it's a huge mix of things. Probably the newest building would be from the 90s. So we use kind of across the organization a similar amount of energy, but it's very much for us concentrated in 2 big sites. So then I compared the energy use index, so how intensely are we using the energy at each site, and between UHN and Nova Scotia Health Authority, NSHA. So we're kind of in the 4s for our big ones, for our Halifax, Fermary, and Victoria General, and you guys are, for the most part, for most of your sites, in kind of the mid 2s, which is fantastic. I dream about being in the 2s. But so this is kind of the scale of our problem. We're using way too much energy. We're using it very poorly, and in some cases more intensely than we should. And I have no idea what's going on with your medical discovery tower there.
That's a typo.
It's a typo.
It was a typo, and it was submitted accidentally, caught it, but they couldn't update the ministry put out. I can't remember. So
I got it off your website, so okay.
Yeah. It's medical tower. I'm sorry, it's a research.
I noticed a window open.
Makes sense.
Maybe that
That could be it.
All the windows open.
If you can make a note of that. Yeah. So then, just to look at the energy mix between these 2, and this is kind of for you guys, consumption of, obviously you're buying chilled water and you're buying steam off of a pipe from the street. So there's a much different mix there. But we're mostly burning natural gas to produce steam, and we use that steam for heating and for cooling and absorption chillers. There's lots of electric chillers, but we also have a large portion in absorption chillers. So electricity for us is about 1/4 of the cost. Propane is tiny, and there's a little bit of heating oil mostly at the little sites or oil burners. But the vast majority of our energy is used in natural gas burning plants to produce steam. And for you guys, it's obviously different. That was the other thing I couldn't really get from your reports, was how much money you're actually spending every year on energy. And for us, it's about $27 million a year, roughly, kind of varies. But and we spend it on, for the most part, natural gas, and about a little more than 1/3 on electricity. So we focus most of our efforts on electricity and natural gas. When we have time, we go after water. But for the most part, insulation is our best measure. And you guys are doing, I think I'm colorblind, but I think this is electricity and this is natural gas. Yeah, okay. I couldn't tell it before I started. But what is your yearly spend? I think somebody told me yesterday, but
31 million.
31 million, so it's very similar. And I guess we are getting our energy cheaper than you then. We are using more and paying less. So I'll just talk about kind of how I got started, and so I work for the demand side management organization in Nova Scotia, which is a franchise called Efficiency One, and we have a contract with the province to provide energy efficiency programs and services for 10 years under the brand of Efficiency Nova Scotia. So that's kind of what we do. And 3 years ago, they came to me and asked if I would go work in the hospital and help them do energy projects. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I want to get out of the office and go do some fun stuff. So I said yes, and I really had no idea what I was doing. They asked me what my experience was, and I said, I've been to a hospital. I sometimes take Advil, but beyond that, I really have no experience whatsoever. I didn't tell them that, so I did get the job. But so I started kind of taking in the scale of the problem and just kind of seeing, who was going to support this. Like, what we were brought in under the terms of a partnership between the Department of Health and the hospital and us, and to kind of say, our there were people at the hospital who said our bills are out of control and we need to start doing something about it, but we really don't know what we want to do. So can you come and figure out what we should do, and then we'll figure out who's going to pay for it and whatever else is going to happen. So they have about an $800 million operating budget at the health authority there, just for the area that I'm in, which is Halifax. And of that, energy costs are about 3%, 2% on average. So it's not a big item, and nobody really paid any attention to it. The bills would be paid by, it would come to someone who receives the invoice, and they would just sign the invoice and say, yeah, go ahead and pay it. And it was never really tracked by anybody, and nobody was really in charge of that cost center, that area. So it was never really paid attention to until they started getting really big bills, and somebody in finance started asking questions, why are we paying so much? And the way we started out with it was to think, like, we have all this experience in doing energy efficiency projects. Like, it's easy for us to go and replace all the lights in a facility. Like, that's simple. It's an easy thing. It's an easy thing for us to put a VFD on a pump because we know what to do, or we have the technical staff. It's simple. It slows down. We know how that works. But the stuff that is really difficult for us is dealing with the small, like the little bits of loss that happen everywhere that it's hard to get anybody to pay any attention to. And the big one for us is the loss of condensate through our heating distribution system. So when we lose a little bit of steam through a steam trap, that's a big deal when it adds up across all the system. And we find that very hard to address. So this is a shot of the back of our Victoria General Hospital. And it's a steam leak that, we have these big tanks full of bunker fuel, and it's bunker C that they used to burn in their boiler. And they haven't done it for probably 10 years, but they still have these tanks on site as a backup fuel, just in case there's a big snowstorm or whatever, and we can't get natural gas, and we can't get whatever else. We'll keep this. So that steam has been leaking for probably 10 months at that point. So it's tens of thousands of dollars a year just running out of your pipe, and nobody cares because it's not going to show up on the bill, and it's not anybody's responsibility. And all that steam is doing is just keeping this tar a little bit viscous, just in case maybe we need it someday. So we have all kinds of situations like that where something's been set up as a just in case, and it takes energy, but it's not really anybody's responsibility. And lots of situations. I don't know if you can see this. It's kind of dark. It's just a shot of. This is actually one of our big thoroughfare hallways. I know it doesn't look like that, but this is where kind of people walk through to get to different areas of the clinics, and it's right next to the big steam distribution system. There's 125 psi steam going through these pipes, and all of the valves are bare. All the pipes are bare. There's no insulation whatsoever on them, and there never has been. They were installed by whoever, and they were never insulated because it was an extra $500 or whatever. And it's just not important. So it's extremely hot in this space, and you get all these complaints all the time of, oh God, it's so hot, can we turn up the air conditioning? So they've increased the air conditioning, and a chiller was installed back here to deal with the heat to try to cool down the space. But really what you should do is just insulate the pipes. So it's a lot of my work has been going in and finding these really obvious situations and saying, okay, this is what we should do. Here's what it's going to cost. Here's what we're going to save. Let's do that, and finding out who can actually do that. Again, same thing. This is right next to our cafeteria. You have 125 psi steam, a bare 12-inch valve or whatever it is, and it's just hot, just burning hot, and it's right underneath a thermostat for the air conditioning system. But this is just all over the place, problems like this, and it's very hard to deal with, and people have walked by it for years, and there's been all kinds of work orders and just problems, and I don't know why. I still have no idea why somebody didn't just say, hey, let's put some insulation on that. I could not tell you why that didn't happen. But anyway, it did eventually. So the way we kind of came into this, we weren't thinking about behavior change at all. Although now I am. I'm thinking, we went in to go and change the behavior of this organization. And we were successful with changing behavior of a lot of the technical staff to look at projects in a certain way and add insulation into whenever we're going to do steam work, and to control how we produce energy. But it's really only half half the equation, or even a much smaller part of the equation, is to be able to put in a system that will respond to your demand. So I think, I said I don't know, but I think part of the problem was that when you put insulation on a pipe, it won't necessarily save you any money if your boilers are still running at the same speed. So everything's designed to run at one speed and produce a certain amount of heat, and all the motors run at the same speed regardless of whether you insulate everything. So that heat is being produced somewhere, and maybe it's going into a reheat loop, or maybe it's something, however complex the system is, it's still being produced. So what we tried to do was create a system that can respond to that demand, so that when we go out and reduce that demand, and we go and put the insulation on, or we replace the thermostat, or change people's behavior, that it actually appears as a savings at the boiler plant, where the motor slows down a little bit, or we have a new type of pump that can slow down an impeller or something like that. So it appears in the bill as an actual dollar saving, rather than being lost in a reheat loop later that night. Which isn't how every system works, but that is how our system works. So to do all this stuff, so I said we've been here for 3 years. Over that time, we've attracted about $3.2 million in investment, and from various sources. So, like I said, Efficiency Nova Scotia pays the rebates and the incentives. So we've paid about whatever 26% of that is. Capital Health has put in a quarter, and the Department of Health has paid for about half of it, just on kind of various grants. And we'll propose a project to them, and we'll take it to them and do a business case, whatever, and then they'll pay for it. None of this would include anything that would be traditionally looked at as behavior change. Like, we would never go to them and say, well, we want to do a behavior change program, and because I don't know how to do a business case for that. So this is all kind of project capital work. And from doing that, we're verified to have been saving about $2 million a year. And it comes from the various utilities. And if you remember back, our utility breakdown, it's pretty close to where our money is going in the utilities. It's about a third, a little bit more than a third for electricity, and then there's most of it's gas and oil from insulation and from projects in the plants. And then we have some water reductions that we've achieved. So we put in about $3 million. We're getting out about $2 million per year. So it's been fairly successful from that standpoint, from a purely financial payback. But in a lot of ways, nobody knows that we're there. So we identified very early on that we need to have the buy-in from the top. We need to have some vice president at least supporting us. We need to have people in finance who care about this sort of thing, and who are going to see the savings and look at it as an investment, and they're going to actually support us and advocate for us within the organization. So we set, they do kind of a strategic plan every few years, like everybody does, and we set a goal of a reduction just in electricity. And I submitted goals for water and for natural gas too, and they kind of said, just pick one goal, don't get crazy here, we're going to do one thing. So I picked electricity because I work for an electrical utility, and they did set that in their strategic goals. And they included kind of language like we should do a better job, be better environmental stewards. We should do something. We don't know what, but we should do something. And so it's kind of driven a lot of people, I kind of think in the upper to middle management level, to say like, yeah, okay, we should probably make some sort of decision here. Something should be done. I don't know what that looks like, but at least they start thinking about it. And then when we start talking about behavior change stuff, we look into, well, what can we do with water conservation? Because a lot of people are very passionate about conserving water and separating the waste, and I'll talk about our urban farm. But I think those things are what really drive, take what somebody's already passionate about and give them the tools to do it at their workplace and get involved in it and drive their own programs. So we've been able to use that fairly successfully to get people to use energy better in other ways. Excuse me. Yeah, so I was going to talk about just how we got started with actual behavior change, and I still don't know really how this worked, but they asked me, I think 2 years ago, I think I'd been there for about 8 months, and I was called into a meeting and I was told, Dave, you have to start some sort of behavioral change program. And I said, okay, great, like, sure. Like, I really had no idea. I don't have the background in the communications. I really have no idea. My background's purely technical. So I kind of said, I don't know what to do. Like, can you give me some resources? And they said, well, you go see our expert. And we have a person, and this is at my efficiency company. So I took a couple weeks to set up a meeting with this person, and I got in to see it, and I said, what can you give me? What sort of resources do you have? Like, how do I do this? And she gave me a book of stickers. And they were really, they're branded our colors, and they have our brand on it. It says, like, there's circle, and they fit over a light switch, and it says, like, turn the lights off. It's a great little reminder if you're walking in a room, turn the lights off. And she gave me the book of stickers, and she was like, so this is what we do. We go into a place and we sticker the place. Sticker it up. And so I was kind of discouraged because I thought that we had like a program, like we would go in, we'd gather some data, we'd do something, and she's like, here you go. So I took the stickers into work, and as I was going around, daily kind of rounds to see people and stuff, I brought the stickers with me, and I realized that it was already stickered. They were already, on every light switch, somebody from my organization had already gone through and they'd already stickered it. But it was a different, it was like an older version. It wasn't our green branding. It was a different shade of green and a different shape sticker. So I took one of them off the wall and I brought it back to this person. I said, it's already been done. And she said, well, it's not the correct color. So I need you to re-sticker. So I still have that box of stickers. I've never stickered the place. I will eventually sticker something, but it won't be that. So when I went back, I said, okay, I'm not stickering. This is not good enough. I need something. If you want me to do this, I need some sort of support. And a couple weeks later, I got notification that I got a budget, and I got $100 to start my behavior change program. So I thought I would get some posters printed, but I still don't know what I'm doing. And I looked around at the poster place. I realized I could only get maybe 20 posters, and I don't know how to make a poster anyway. So I didn't think I could really pay anyone to create a poster for me with $100. So I thought I would kind of delay it. I would push it back. I would let it go for like 4 months, and I said, I'll make suggestion boxes, and I'll gather input for 4 months. And So I made these kind of 4 suggestion boxes, and I put them at the main sites in the lobby, and I've sent out emails and sent notifications to people saying, encourage your staff to make suggestions to me, like put whatever in the box, and I'll give you a monthly prize. Best suggestion every month gets, I think I spent $25 on the boxes, and I had 3 $25 prizes to give out. So I checked it the first month, and there were a lot of dick drawings in the suggestion box, which I didn't expect, because there were, I guess if you leave a suggestion box in a public place, that's what's going to happen. And a lot of suggestions from people saying, turn your lights off, and you should shut your computer off, and whatever else, or you should drive more. But what I really started to learn was there were all these people throughout the organization who were kind of working away at it. I started to get suggestions in the following months, like I always tell my coworkers to shut their computer off was one big one. So there's these little, and this one. So this lady who says, every night I tell everybody in my office to shut their computers off. But she had gotten a complaint from the IT department saying, well, we need everyone to leave their computers on so we can send updates to them overnight. So I went to talk to the IT department and said, you must be able to turn them on remotely. Like this can't be really a thing. So they have since done that. So I don't think it's complete yet, but they're able to actually turn things on and shut them off. So it's a huge savings. You know, we get a gigawatt hour a year out of doing this, just being able to shut people's computers off automatically, turn them on overnight when we need them, and then nobody has to, you know, bug their coworker about it. Another suggestion I got that, and the stuff that came out of it was a security guard who says, you know, I'm constantly shutting lights off after people, and he was kind of annoyed about it. And I was like, this is fantastic. Like, I love that you're doing this. Can you do it some more? So I talked to his bosses, and the problem was when he was going around shutting lights off, he was getting angry phone calls from people in that area saying, you know, how dare you turn my lights off? How, you know, I don't want to walk into a dark room in the morning. You know, a lot of people were very upset that their lights weren't on when they came to work in the morning. So basically all we did was we made it part of the normal rounds for the guards that when you see a light, turn it off. And I put up all sorts of notifications that if anybody has a problem with this, here's my phone number. Like, call me and complain, don't put it on the guards because they're just doing what they're told to do. So I tried to deflect all the blame to myself because I don't care. You know, I can answer angry phone calls all day long. Like, yeah, sure. But it works so long as, and then when the guards weren't getting blamed for this, then it was fine, and they love shutting the lights off, and it's just like a normal part of their thing when they go around.
Did anyone call you?
Yeah, I got a lot of angry phone calls, and some legitimate phone calls. You know, some of the guards would accidentally turn the lights off on women in the washroom, like reach in and flick it off. Like, okay, that happened a couple times. That was, you know, that's not good, but it's not really a big problem. A lot of from people who are annoyed that someone would shut the lights off in the hallway, even though you can still see and it's still perfectly fine. So I don't know. I just kind of deflect it and kind of put them off and say, okay. And then I got some suggestions from laparoscopic surgeons saying, you know, our OR room is too glary, it's too bright, and we can't focus on a screen and things like that. So, like little technical problems. And this one in particular, they just repainted the room really brightly in yellow, whereas all the other ones are kind of a dark green. And that was really the problem, that they repainted it, they hadn't changed the lights. So I took it as an opportunity to take all the lights out, put LEDs in there at a lower number of them, and give them a bunch of switches stuff. I gotta move on. So yeah, so we're doing a strategic plan. I don't know what's gonna come out of it. It's kind of halfway through. I'm hoping to get more of the behavior change stuff in there. And I just want to show, before I'm done here, our urban farm. And we're really looking, like, there's a lot of people really interested in the food aspects of this, and bringing in kind of your passion for local food and bringing that into the whole sustainable mix. So this is a shot of our urban farm. It's really just kind of like an eighth of it. This is downtown Halifax. This is the busiest intersection in the place down there. This is Quinpool Road, if anybody knows. This is Roby Street over here. And we have this huge food growing plot where they knocked down a school, so you can't really use the soil. They had to truck in soil, which is kind of the crappy part of this, but they grow food there, and they sell it on the side of the road, the Roby Street. You know, if your car is stopped, you can wave your hand and get a bag of tomatoes delivered to you. And it's like a community garden too, so you can rent a plot, you can grow your food. We're trying to get to the point where we grow the food there, serve it in the cafeterias, take the waste, put it in a worm composter, compost it in the gardens, and kind of keep that going. This will eventually get bulldozed, probably in like 5 or 6 years, when they want to build a hospital on this site. So what we've been able to do is turn them into an edible landscaping thing. And this got announced, I think, a couple weeks ago. They're going to plow the Nova Scotia Hospital. There's all kinds of land there, and start growing food. And it's really a return to the kind of therapy they did at the turn of the century, where you'd have people, especially mental health patients, working in farms as part of their therapy. I don't know anything about this stuff, but it sounds really interesting to me, and I'm excited about it. Yeah, so questions?
Thank you.